Congressman Brad Schneider from Illinois. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So, day 16, you heard the president. Your reaction is what?
Well, my first reaction is, as you said in the introduction, he has gone where no one's ever gone before. To him, I think he's looking at Gaza as a real estate transaction. He talks about taking it over, owning it. The fact of the matter is, and I say this as someone who has been a Zionist all my life, I believe the bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable, and Israel is our most important ally in the region. But in the same way that Israelis have a tie to the land, the people in Gaza have a tie to their land. And so, perhaps it's a negotiating ploy. Perhaps it is viewing it as a transaction. I don't see it as us moving forward to resolving the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians or moving the area anywhere near to peace.
But as you hear the president and White House officials, we cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. What does have to happen? You've seen the pictures, and Gaza Strip is an absolute mess. It will cost tens of millions of dollars, into the billions, to rebuild that area. From your perspective, as a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as the co-chair of the Abraham Accords Caucus, what needs to happen?
Well, I agree. If we keep trying the same things, you're not going to get a different result, and we need a different result. As long as Hamas is able to rain terror over Gaza, to threaten Israel and the people of Israel, there's not going to be peace. So we have to get to a place where Hamas is no longer in control. Its leaders are either removed from the country or simply removed, as many have already been, and give the people of Gaza a chance to rebuild their homes without rebuilding the threat to Israel. That's what we have to do. That's why the conversations with the Saudis and our other Arab allies working with Israel to find a path forward, I think the United States has a very important role to play. I don't think that role is the United States occupying Gaza, the United States owning Gaza, or the United States having forces in Gaza and ending up in what most certainly would become a quagmire.
It was another really head-spinning day yesterday at the White House with the news conference, and the president also yesterday and again today defending Elon Musk with access, both he and a small group of people working for him at DOGE, what is the Department of Government Efficiency, a department in name only, but access to a lot of information involving you and me and millions of Americans, payment systems, private information that he is now sifting through. What are your concerns?
Yeah, I think this would be more appropriately named the Department of Government Intrusion. What Musk and his minions are doing is they've gotten access to people's social security numbers, their pay information. It looks like they may have access to health information. This is the private information of all citizens, something that has been deemed as sacred from our very founding. It's defined in the Fourth Amendment. You have an unelected individual who is not even technically an employee of the United States government, has not been vetted by the Senate. He and his people are gaining access to the most privileged, private, confidential information of American citizens, and it gives me real concern.
So what are Democrats going to do about this? That's been one of the biggest complaints over the last couple of weeks. Has there been enough resistance from Democrats trying to push back? We've heard from, of course, Leader Jeffries and the Senate Leader Chuck Schumer. But from your standpoint, what's next?
That's a great question. I might frame it a little bit differently. Democrats have been loud from the beginning when the president or the Office of Management and Budget issued a memo freezing all funding. Democrats spoke up, and eventually that was rescinded. We've been talking about what Elon Musk is doing, gaining access to our personal information. Democrats have been loud. The question, it should be, where are the Republicans? This is not a partisan issue. They're going after the information of all Americans, independent of their party or identification. We should all be up in arms, and Congress should be protecting its prerogatives. What the administration is doing is running over Congress, an equal branch of our government, literally with a steamroller. And so what I'd like to try to do is find colleagues on the other side of the aisle and stand strong together, saying, yes, we can make our government better. Yes, we can make it stronger. We can tackle the challenges the American people elected all 435 members of Congress to tackle. But turning over the keys to not President Trump, but effectively President Musk, is not the way to do it.
As you know, Jamie Raskin, your colleague from Maryland, calling this the fourth branch of government. When you talk to your Republican colleagues about this in a quiet, private moment, what are they telling you about week 2.5 of this presidency?
So what I'll say, and I want to protect my relations and the confidences of my colleagues, but they are very frustrated. The Republicans I work with, and it's a broad swath, are not, I think personally, are not aligned with where the president is going on a lot of things. Certainly not comfortable with Elon Musk as a private citizen, the wealthiest man in the world, gaining access to information that would actually increase his wealth and his own personal power, but do American citizens no good. But we're in a dynamic where saying that publicly is very difficult. And as I said before, I hope we get to a place where Republicans and Democrats, those of us who have the interests of the country front and center and are willing to stand up to folks who are trying to just profit personally, we can confront this and get back to the principles that were defined in our Constitution.
And with regard to Elon Musk, he gets millions of dollars in government contracts. Isn't there a conflict of interest here?
Absolutely, there's a conflict of interest with Elon Musk. It's not just that he gets millions of dollars in contracts to the United States government. He owns one of the largest, one of the most profitable social media platforms that is based and built on access to individual data. And if he can tap into the databases of the United States government, who has information on virtually every American, starting with Social Security numbers, but millions of employees, their pay information, veterans, their health care information. You run down the list. If he can access that and profit from that, he's going to enrich himself beyond measure.
We're talking to Democratic Congressman Brad Schneider. He is a member of House Foreign Affairs and Ways and Means. And we were joking before we went live on the air, what should we talk about? Because there is simply no shortage of things to talk about. First, the reporting yesterday from the Wall Street Journal, Congressman, the CIA offering buyouts to its entire workforce in what officials say is a bid to bring the agency in line with Trump priorities. On that story, on that front, your reaction is what?
Well, I'll react in a broader way. I spent my career in business before coming to Congress. I worked with companies developing long-term strategies, trying to navigate difficult waters. Across the board cuts, offering every employee a buyout, you end up, the analogy I've always used is imagine a pilot coming on the PA of a plane before takeoff and says, we discovered that we were 10% overweight. We've already cut off 10% of our wings, took off 10% of our fuel. We're looking for 10% of our passengers willing to leave. I'm going to tell you, every passenger would get off that plane, because without strategically thinking about how to make our government more efficient, more effective, while providing the services that the American people depend on our government for, the risks are extraordinary. So this is not the way to do it. The CIA, responsible for collecting intelligence about threats from our enemies, threats from terrorist groups. I want to make sure that as we're looking for where to cut, we're not cutting meat, but we're cutting fat.
I've been talking to civil service employees in the FBI. They worked under Democratic and Republican administrations, and to a person, they're worried. They're worried about the agency. They're worried about their own jobs. Some might have done some research or work on January 6th, but they did so at the behest of the leadership, and yet they may pay a price. Does that worry you?
Absolutely, I'm worried about the Trump administration and even more so Elon Musk and his lieutenants targeting government employees, people who made a decision at some point in their career that they wanted to devote their working life to serving the American people. And in many of these cases, these are individuals who are not setting the responsibilities for their jobs or for the assignments they're given, but are following the instructions of their superiors, doing what they believe is the best for the country as a whole. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican in the White House or a Democrat in the White House. The folks who are working day in and day out to defend our country, to protect our interests at home and around the world, to make sure we're providing the services, whether it's Social Security, Medicare, or veterans benefits, that those people are getting what they deserve. Those employees need to be able to do their job and not have the fear that if the administration changes, they're going to be forced to quit their job or fired.
And no doubt, Congressman, to your earlier point, there can always be areas to clean up waste, fraud, and abuse. The question is this the right way to go about doing it? So my question specifically, under the law, is Elon Musk breaking the law when it comes to these employees who potentially, especially the FBI, may be fired?
I think it's very possible, in fact, probably likely that they are in violation of the law, and it's just not the way to approach problems. I am proud of the fact I have the privilege of chairing the New Democratic Coalition, which are the moderate Democrats. We have always worked across the aisle with our Republican colleagues in trying to find common ground. And the approach should always be, identify the question, whether it's a problem or an opportunity. What are you trying to address? Define the goals you want to achieve. Then you develop a work plan to achieve those goals, and you're always trying to evaluate your work and review it and look for improvements in efficiency and effectiveness. That's the process we should be following. I think that's what our military does as they look at whatever the mission they might be assigned to. There's always after-action review and lessons learned. Government should do the same. But what the administration is doing is basically bringing a meat cleaver to a process that should be much more refined.
And final question, because you sit on foreign affairs, you talk to leaders and officials around the world. Is America at this moment right now, with everything going on, more or less vulnerable?
So the United States is an exceptional country. I've always believed that. That's why I wanted to get in public service. We have so much to be proud of, starting with the birth of this nation and the Declaration of Independence and what it believed in. Because of our values and principles, we grew to be the strongest country in the world. I think we still are. But as we drift from those principles, if we abandon the ideals of every citizen being equal before the law, that we are not an imperial country, but we're a country that tries to lift up the entire world with our success, as we get away from that, I think we are not more secure, but less secure.
Fellow Northwestern grad, Congressman Brad Schneider from Illinois, the 10th Congressional District. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, and go Cats.